Welcome back to another episode of the RICA Test Preparation Guide. If you find this series helpful, please make sure to click the like button below and make sure to subscribe to keep up to date on new episodes and some of my other hopefully useful teaching resources and materials. We're going to get started with Competency 4. So Competency 4 is on the concepts of print, letter recognition, and the alphabetic principle. In this particular episode, here are some of the things that we're going to be looking at. We are going to be looking at defining concepts of print in instructional strategies. We're going to define letter recognition and instructional strategies to teach that. We're going to define the alphabetic principle and what it means. We're also going to look at the relationship between writing and the alphabetic principle / letter sound correspondence. Then we have differentiating concepts of print instruction. So we'll look at the different groups and how to change your instruction to better suit their needs. And then how are we going to assess concepts of print, letter recognition, and the alphabetic principle? So let's start by defining the term concepts of print. Concepts of print are principles of how letters, words, and sentences are represented in written language. These principles include awareness that print carries meaning and the relationship between spoken and written language. It's also sentence, word, and letter representation. It's also directionality and the ability to track print and text. Finally, it's also book handling skills. So these principles should all be learned by kindergarten, and they really are the foundation to learning how to read. So what are some instructional strategies that you can use in the classroom and should know for the RICA in terms of concept of print? First, we have read alouds. Read alouds can be used to show students that reading can also be fun, and it can also show students that print carries meaning. Then we have classroom print. Classroom print is the written print that you as the teacher chose to display in your classroom. So such as labels and posters that you might see in a kindergarten classroom or something like that. Then we have everyday print, which on the other hand is the written print that students are exposed to naturally in their daily life. So it's maybe not necessarily what you chose to put in your classroom. Then we have shared books. Shared books utilize those big books that you might remember from like kindergarten. They really incorporate that predictability and has large print. So that really helps promote the development of all the concepts of print. Directionality, knowing that words hold meaning, all of that. Finally, we have direct instruction. Direct instruction is really ideal when a student or a small group of students is struggling with one or more concepts of print. So this would be when you need to provide really some intervention to help push these concepts of print. Now let's move on to defining letter recognition, and then we'll dive into some instructional strategies. So here are some vocabulary terms that you should know for the RICA. We have letter recognition, which is the ability to identify both uppercase and lowercase letters when pointed to by the teacher. Then we have letter formation and production. That's the ability to write uppercase and lowercase letters. Finally, letter naming, so the ability to say the name of the letter when pointed to by the teacher. And then we finally have the alphabetic principle, which is their awareness that letters represent sounds. So again, you should know these terms for the RICA and should spend some time reviewing and studying these. Now let's look at some instructional strategies that we can use to help teach letter recognition. First, we have kinesthetic activities. These activities can include having students write letters in the air or even using like clay to create letters. Then we have name and letter association. This includes activities that involve promoting students to associate objects with letters. So, for example, you can have students go on a scavenger hunt in the classroom and locate objects starting with, let's say, the letter C. Next, we have letter writing. So the simple act of having students write the letters while saying their name is just a great way to reinforce letter recognition as well. Finally, we have singing. We all grew up singing the ABC song growing up. So having the students sing the song while pointing at the letters also helps establish that letter recognition. Finally, we have books, specifically ABC books, which can also help with letter recognition. And there are plenty out there now, engaging ABC books out there that make learning this fun. Now, I want us to further define the alphabetic principle. I know we touched on it just for a second there, but let's really dive into what this means. So again, the alphabetic principle is the awareness that letters represent sounds. A student that understands the alphabetic principle knows that letters are used to represent sounds in a word as well. Student understanding of the alphabetic principle is also foundational for future understanding of letter-sound correspondence, decoding skills, and phonemic awareness. So the alphabetic principle is essential when it comes to reading. At the same time though, instruction in phonemic awareness, phonics, and spelling are also all great ways teachers can strengthen their students' current understanding of the alphabetic principle. So there is a relationship between writing and the alphabetic principle and letter-sound correspondence. Students can develop their understanding of the alphabetic principle and letter-sound correspondence when they actually write. So as a teacher, you have to provide students with opportunities to phonetically spell, but also provide formal spelling instruction. They're both important. So phonetic spelling, in other words, it's also known as invented spelling, which is when a student does not know the correct spelling of a word, but they attempt to spell it by sounding it out. Now let's look at how we can differentiate our instruction in terms of concepts of print. Knowing this is going to be really essential when you're doing your short and long essay questions. So for example, you would ask yourself, how would you meet the needs of English learners when you're differentiating your instruction in concepts of print? Some things that help is one-on-one or small group instruction, and also kinesthetic activities. These kinesthetic activities are especially essential for students whose first language did not require them to learn letters similar to those in the English language. So just to give two examples, Mandarin and Arabic, those are two languages who do not use letters that are in the English language. Then how would you meet the needs of struggling readers? This can involve extra practice or providing even more examples that are concrete. You can have instruction that's more skill focused, and you might also want to focus on reteaching so they're getting more experience. Again, that's that extra practice coming in. Finally, how would you meet the needs of advanced learners? This would involve building on their current understanding or skills that they have and increasing the pace of the lesson. Finally, how are you going to assess your students' understanding of concepts of print, letter recognition, and the alphabetic principle? In terms of concepts of print, you're mostly going to be doing some student observations that are formal and informal. So, for example, you can hand a student a small book and ask the student to move their finger as you read the book. The student should be able to move their finger to each word to demonstrate that words hold meaning and demonstrate an understanding of directionality. These observations should be written down and kept so you can pull them out and show the student's progress. Next, we have letter recognition. So this could be assessed using letter lists and writing. So a letter list would kind of consist of the 26 letters, and the teacher would say a letter, and the student would have to point to that letter said by the teacher. If you want a more challenging assessment, that's when you would involve the teacher saying a letter and the student writing down the letter. Finally, when we want to assess the alphabetic principle, we're going to focus on read alouds and writing again. So a student can demonstrate their development of the alphabetic principle by showing their ability to sound out words. Even if the student makes some mistakes sounding out a word, they're still showing that they understand that letters are associated with sounds. And again, a more challenging assessment would involve the teacher saying a word and having the student attempt to write the word. I hope you all enjoyed the 4th episode of the RICA Test Preparation Guide. Again, if you find this series helpful, please make sure to click the like button below and be sure to subscribe to keep up to date as I'm posting more episodes and as you prepare to pass the RICA yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time at Teaching with Miss Robles.